Hi guys, good morning everybody. This is Katya Homm and
Ryan Donner from Donner & Associates.
Hi guys, I hope you guys are having a great day. Today is a big day for us because hopefully we're gonna find a lot of answers to questions that you already had in mind but you didn't know how to ask. Here we have in the house Lic Adan Meza, el Notario from Notario 29. Lic, thank you so much for joining us today.
Katya, Ryan, thank you for having me. Good morning.
So the purpose of this, I wouldn't call it interview, I would call it like come together and finding out some answers to questions, is that there are a lot of, shady, foggy points in closing costs that has to do with Fideicomiso, that has to do with ISR, which is the capital gains tax, that we always receive from our clients. And we thought we're gonna have the master here to answer us, to help us to get these answers. Thank you again.
You're welcome. I'll try to do my best, sure.
So, what is the first one? Fideicomiso, no? Let's start it with...
That's probably the most common question that we get from clients. I
Okay,
definitely agree.
so shoot us. What is a Fideicomiso? Let's not get too deep into it because we're gonna sit here until tomorrow. But how would you explain to a non-national, why do they need a Fideicomiso bank trust if they wanna purchase something in our beautiful bay?
The Mexican government started creating a bank trust to allow more foreign investment to come, not only to Mexico, but to the entire country. But they established a limit in the border and in the coast because we lost a lot of territory to the U.S. And so for me, it doesn't have many advantages, but of course there's a lot of interest from banks to keep that figure because they do get a lot of money from just administrating properties through the trust. And as you may know, if you're buying a property in Mexico, you have to have a trust if the property is located between 50 kilometers from the coast inside and 100 kilometers from the border inside, north and south.
The restricted zone, right?
It is called the restricted zone, and normally it's a permission granted to the bank for 50 years to hold the property in trust. What I tell my clients is basically it's like opening a bank account, but instead of having money, you have a house or a property in the trust. Because even though you are not the owner, the bank cannot live in the house, the bank cannot pay the utilities, you are responsible. It's actually a legal fiction. Years ago, the federal government tried to remove the trust, but they fail to do that because removing the trust figure, it will help us to close faster and to do our job a lot easier, to be honest.
But it didn't happen
It didn't happen, it didn't go through. Like I said, there's a lot of interest from the bank to keep it,
I
to
love
keep it
your
going.
honesty.
So.
Thank you for that. Okay, so it's for the Mexican government also to get some advantage from the non-nationals, but it has a lot of advantage. I always say to the clients that they can name your beneficiaries, for example, in the trust, in the deed, right?
Yes, I mean, you do have the options to appoint a substitute beneficiary or not. You can say, well, I don't want a substitute beneficiary, but in case you do want, that helps your relatives to acquire the property a lot faster than going to a normal probate process in the Mexican judicial system, which it can be carried out in court, or it can be done with the notary also. We also have the privilege to follow probate processes in our offices. But yes, it is true. I think one of the most important advantage of the trust is that your substitute beneficiary will inherit the property a lot faster.
And
Yes.
a lot of questions that our clients ask are, who can you name as substitute beneficiaries then? Is it only family members, or can you name other things, people, entities as well?
You can name anyone, basically, and you can establish different degrees. In first order, I want my kids. In second place, I want, my sister. So there's no restrictions. You can name as many as you like.
Third order, your favorite real estate agent.
Yes.
Don't forget that. So what happens, that's kind of an unfortunate, sad case, but what happens if, let's say, the owner of the property who has a fideicomiso, he passes away. the kids are in the United States and they don't know much of, this property. What is the process for them to flow with? What do they have to do?
Okay, first of all, you need to contact an attorney or a notary because I had clients that don't talk too much with their relatives, so they know that they own a property in Mexico, but they don't know that they are beneficiaries because sometimes they don't want to know that they appointed them as substitute beneficiaries. But what they have to do is you have to contact a real estate attorney or a notary, and we will explain you the process or how to become the new main beneficiary of the trust. Of course, you need to prove that the beneficiary has passed away with a death certificate, with the apostille translation, but it's a process that I would recommend to you and your clients to contact an attorney or a notary to do
How
that.
difficult is the process?
It's not difficult. You can grant a power of attorney back home in the US or Canada, or you can do it here in Mexico, because the process could take from 3 to 6 months to be ready.
Not so bad.
So the most important document to have is the death certificate. And it normally, when the substitute beneficiaries live in a place that is not close to services like legalizing documents or apostilles, it gets harder to get it done. But if you have 3 to 6 months, you want to stay here in Mexico, we can do it for you. Or if you decide to grant a power of attorney to trusted attorney or real estate agent, that will also help. It is not difficult, but it takes like 3 to 6 months to get it done.
So what happens if I decide to change my substitute beneficiaries? I don't like my children anymore.
Okay. Well, that's you can also change your bank. Not only your substitute. One of the rights that you have as a owner of a trust, you can remove or change or add or remove substitute beneficiaries and change them all, or even change the bank. For instance, you can actually add another property to your trust, to the same trust, if the property is next to
Adjacent to the other property.
Exactly. So, yes, you can change the substitute beneficiaries on your trust.
What about if I get divorced or separated, something from maybe if I own the property with someone else? How easy is it to change your primary beneficiaries?
Well, remember that the spouse, each one, they appointed each other most of the time as substitute beneficiaries, but if you want to change your substitute beneficiary, each one can decide individually to do that and say, well, I appointed you as my beneficiary, but now I want only my children, not you. That's something that can be done separately. Yeah.
So they can just go and do a new, make a new deed, request a new deed. They can change it. Just real fast.
Depending on the bank. For instance, there's one bank that allows a simple letter, just informing the bank that they want to change the beneficiaries, and then the only requirement is that the signature gets attested before the notary public, and that's it. Other banks, they're required an instruction letter and a new deed to change the substitute beneficiary. So it depends which bank you're using. The requirements are different. Yeah.
Okay. You had some questions about power of attorneys, right? We were.
Yeah. So what happens if a client can't come down to sign their deed? Maybe they are stuck in the U.S., stuck in Canada, wherever they're at, and they aren't able to actually come down here for the closing. Then what's that power of attorney process look like?
Well, at the beginning, when I started working in this, I made a lot of mistakes with powers of attorney because I didn't know how to do them properly. Because again, each bank has a different requirements for the powers of attorney. And I didn't know that there is an international protocol. It's called the Washington Protocol. And the Canada and the US and Mexico, they established the requirements of a proper power of attorney. Everything has to be the way it has to be done. So my recommendation is, if the power of attorney is going to be used in Mexico, have a local attorney or notary draft the power of attorney. We can do it in the computer, we can send it to your email. You just need to print it, go with a local notary, and then send it to the consulate or to the Secretary of State for the apostille, which Canada now has the apostille. They did not sign the Convención de la Haya. Now Canada, they do use the apostille right now. So, yeah.
Okay, so it's not so difficult as we think
No.
it is.
No.
And about how long does that take? Does it add extra time onto the closing?
Actually, I mean, having the power of attorney, we can do it in one day, but the process of getting the notary back home and having the legalization of the apostille, that depends on where you live. So
That makes sense.
yeah.
Okay, so we still have, thank you for clarifying here around the Fideicomiso. We still have two main topics to talk about, and it's famous closing cost and even the more famous ISR, which is the capital gains. About closing cost, I would like to ask you, but I'm just putting out here everything that we hear here from our clients. Why is it so expensive? While in the US it's only 1 or 2% or not even. Why do we have the closing cost between, let's say, 4.5%, even 7% of the purchase price? Why is it so high?
Well, for example, in Nayarit, there's a fixed percentage for the transfer tax for the property. It's a fixed 2%. So starting right out there, you have 2%, whatever value the property is, you have to pay 2%. But the higher the value of the property, the lower the percentage. And between the Bay Area, we have Puerto Vallarta and Bahía de Banderas. We have different ways, different states, so different taxes, different fees. So depending where you're buying, if you're buying in Puerto Vallarta, if you're buying in Nuevo Vallarta or Sayulita, it's a difference. It's a big difference. So
these are all taxes, right?
Taxes and fees, yes.
Okay.
And like previously, like I said before the interview, I mean, I'm not familiar with the costs in the US or Canada, but what I do know, that even though you pay a lot in your closing costs, 4%, 6%, 7%, you can, when you sell your property in the future, you can subtract or deduct all the expenses from your profit and therefore pay less capital gains.
That's a good benefit.
Yeah, and also the property taxes in Mexico are not that high, which is another difference from the US and Canada.
That's a huge difference, right?
Major difference. I'm from California.
Okay, so that's about closing costs. So you saying that there may be a huge difference between if I want to buy a property in Nayarit, which is, let's say, from Nuevo Vallarta all the way to north, or Jalisco. Can we say if I want to buy something in Nuevo Vallarta or Bucerías, that's going to be, the closing cost is going to be much higher than in Jalisco, or I can't, this cannot be a statement?
No, I'll give you an example. In Nayarit, the local tax, the city hall charges 2% on the highest value, whether it is the purchase price, the selling price, or the assessed value of the property. In Puerto Vallarta, you get charged not on the selling price, you get charged on the assessed value of the property,
Okay.
which is way lower. So you cannot apply the same method to a property in Nayarit and a property in Puerto Vallarta or Cabo Corrientes or any other place in Jalisco. So that's a big difference.
Okay,
Yeah.
can do apple and apple here.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's jump to the famous ISR, the capital gains.
That's what everybody wants.
That's what everybody was saying.
That's the most
Here we go.
expensive one.
Saving the best for the end.
Exactly.
Yeah, like, okay, Katya, so how much percentage is the capital gains tax? And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, it's not as simple. I cannot just give you a percentage, because obviously we have the prices in US dollars and the exchange rate and everything else, and now I'm going to give you the word. Help us to clarify this.
Well, it depends on your client situation. I'm assuming that you get this question a lot. Probably before your clients list the property, they want to know how much money they'll be walking out, after the transaction. And first of all, you need to know what's your fiscal situation in Mexico. Are you a resident in Mexico for tax purposes or not? If you're not a resident for tax purposes, there are two ways to pay your capital gains. Which the first one, it's 25% of the selling price with no deductions allowed, straight 25%. The other rate is 35% on the profit that you're making. But I've seen a lot of clients getting confused because which is pretty normal because you're thinking in your currency, the US dollars. I bought a property for $300,000 and I'm selling for $500,000, so I'm only making a profit of $200,000, so I should pay 35% on the profit plus your deductions. But you have to remember and take in consideration that taxes are calculated in pesos. So the exchange rate from the date that you purchase plays a significant role, and the exchange rate on the day that you're selling, because the lower the exchange rate when you sell, it's better for you because you're making less profit in pesos. So in your mind, you're thinking US dollars or Canadian dollars, but in pesos, you might be making a lot of profit. So that's why you have to start with that.
Okay. And then? So we have the exchange rate difference. And then what else? Then is there any percentage that plays a role, or how is the further calculation going?
So again, we're giving the example as for a non-fiscal resident, like a tourist in Mexico, in simple words. 25% of the selling price or 35% on the profit. We have clients that live here full-time, or they come here 6 months or half a time of the year, and they are temporal or permanent resident. They have a different benefit from a tourist. You have to become a resident for tax purposes, which it's easy to obtain your temporal or your permanent resident status. You get your CURP, you get your RFC, your Constancia Fiscal. You get all the requirements, the utility bills with the RFC on it, and then you get treated differently than a tourist. The rate goes down way more, and you have the option to apply for a capital gain tax exemption for selling your home, which right now roughly it's about $292,000 US per person. So if you have a property that is owned by 2 or 3 and all of them qualify, well, you have to multiply the exemption. But if the price exceeds that amount, you have to pay for the surplus for that.
So anything over that roughly $290,000, you said, then you still have to pay.
You have to pay the difference. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so if I'm a resident, what are the requirements, just quickly, that I need to have in case I'm thinking of a future sale of my property and I want to exempt?
Okay, first of all, you have to be a resident. I mean, let's not confuse being a resident for immigration purposes, which is the temporal, and the resident and the permanent card. That's a residency for immigration purposes, in case you want to become later on a Mexican citizen. But being a resident, either for temporal or permanent, gives you the CURP, the famous CURP that you've heard before. With that CURP, you can use it to obtain an RFC. The RFC will give you a constancia that will help you to prove that you are a resident for tax purposes in Mexico.
So for those people, for those people who don't know what an RFC is, it's essentially your taxpayer ID number, right?
Exactly. And once you get that, you must prove that you've been living on the property for at least 6 months. And you can use, first of all, the phone bill. You have to be a landline, no cell phones. The electrical bill, the CFE. It could be just one. You don't need to give all of them, just one. A bank statement, if you open a bank account, it must have the address from the property that you want to sell and exempt the tax. And finally, any credit card from shop department like Costco, Liverpool, that could help you. And also, you have to mention on the deed a different address from the house that you're selling to receive any notifications in case Hacienda wants to double check your taxes. I mean, the notaries, we are obligated not only to calculate but also to retain and pay taxes on behalf of our clients, and we notify everything to Hacienda. So in case they want to clarify something, you cannot use the address from the house you're selling because they're not going to find you there. So it's a requirement to have a different address, a different place, just to receive notification, just in case.
This could be a friend's house or something,
Sure.
right? If they don't.
Yeah.
don't
I mean, you're not
own two
obligated to have
properties.
another
Yeah.
property in Mexico. Yeah.
Okay.
And Hacienda is essentially like kind of like the IRS.
It's the equivalent of the IRS.
So tell us then, what is the difference between, obviously you can't speak really to a notary in the United States or in Canada, but what's kind of the responsibilities of a notary here in Mexico? What is the kind of major differences?
Well, one of the major differences, I will not go through all of them, but the most important, I get this question asked a lot. Why in the US anybody can be a notary and why in Mexico it's so difficult to be a notary? We're different systems, but I'm not going to get into that conversation. But basically, we work for Hacienda, the equivalent of the IRS, for free. I mean, not only for the Hacienda, but also for the state government and the municipal government, because we collect taxes and fees for all those three entities: the city hall, the state, and the federal government. And we don't get paid. I mean, our clients pay us for the services, but we actually, if you can imagine that people go by themselves and pay their taxes, we have over 6,000 notaries in the country.
What are these numbers that you guys have?
Oh, we're identified as numbers because that's just a way to identify.
Okay.
We're separated in 5 sections in the state, in my state of Nayarit. So we belong to the first section. So in the first section we have like 44 notaries. So you just get the number. Yeah.
And you're number 29.
29. So we are involved a lot in real estate, in taxes, as well as power of attorneys, wills. I mean, all of the work that we do, it's important, but our main responsibility comes with taxes. If we do something wrong, we're responsible with the government to pay whatever difference. So that's a huge responsibility for us to calculate right and collect the taxes and pay them in due time to the government. So.
Is that also then why you collect Know Your Client form, a KYC, so that you have all of the client's information? What's the purpose of that then?
Okay, we've since 2014 we've received a lot of pressure from the international entities to prevent money laundering, and one of the activities that it's part of the process to identify or prevent money laundering, it's the notary, the offices, the real estate transaction that goes through the notary. So we are obligated not only to identify, but to keep records of all the transactions that we do at the office and to report any suspicious activity that we think it's happening in our office. And also, we have a new figure like the beneficial owner, the dueño beneficiario. We have to another obligations. I mean, Hacienda is giving us more obligations, which for us is good because that means that they need us for that purpose. So some clients that they get concerned of why are you asking me for these questions or more IDs. We don't ask it because we wanted to, because we are obligated to identify the customers and the clients and the transactions and also send reports to Hacienda.
Yeah, the social security number is usually a very sensitive point. You know, we get this, like people do not like give their social security number away. So yeah, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but this is what it is in Mexico. So I guess you guys are pretty pressed, right, by the government and by.
I'll give you an example of why we need the social security number.
Yes, please.
Also in 2014, the deed doesn't work to prove the value of how much you pay for the property. An electronic bill, a factura, is the one that works for to prove how much you pay for the property. If you don't have it, you're gonna have a huge problem with capital gains because you cannot prove how much you pay. But now, if between individuals, the notary is obligated also to provide that factura to the buyer. But the government says, well, in order to provide the factura, we need either the RFC or the Social Security number. So that's the trick. It's, well, you either have a tax ID in Mexico or you have the US or the Canada.
So if you're not a fiscal resident of Mexico, then you're responsible to provide your Social Security if you're American, or C if you're Canadian.
And in that invoice, we send a report of what property you're buying, for how much money you're buying, so that information that goes straight to the government. So,
and then you're also obligated under the law to protect that data, I imagine.
Yeah, of course. No, we're not able to share, or I mean, only with the government. If we get required to do so, we have to cooperate with the authorities and provide that information, but we cannot transfer or sell that information.
So their Social Security number is safe with you?
Yeah, it is safe with us, yes.
That's important to know. So something very important, when you get exempted, you have to do a declaration on a yearly basis, right?
That's right.
So you have to declare. It's something super important because people usually just sell their property, they got exempted, bye, and they go. So they forgot this detail. Can you just secure me in this, that they have to send a declaration to the government?
Okay,
Hacienda?
We have to make a difference depending, we're back to the question, if you're a tourist, if you pay as a tourist,
you won't be able to exempt.
Exactly, and the payment that you do, it's final. You have to do nothing. It's just, we'll give you, the notary will give you a factura for the tax that you pay, so you can prove in your country that you pay the tax. But if you are a resident in Mexico, and even if you apply for the exemption or not, if let's say you didn't pay anything, you lost money, or you pay a little, you still have to submit a declaration of taxes. Let's say you're selling today. You have until April of next year to submit that statement. The Mexican government is like, okay, you apply for an exemption, it's okay. Just let me know that you use the exemption, because they want to be informed that you already used, because they will see the money in your account and they want to know where it came from. So.
Okay, thank you.
So going back, to the point that we talked about earlier of deductions for capital gains taxes, ways to help avoid or minimize your obligations of paying capital gains taxes. I understand that there are a few little approaches or things that you can apply to help minimize your tax obligations, no?
Sure. I mean, starting with the closing costs that you paid when you purchase the property, as well as the real estate commissions that you are paying when you're selling the property. And also the improvements that you've done to the property will help you to reduce or minimize your capital gains.
Very importantly, when you do the improvements on your property, you're going to have a factura, right?
That's right.
So that you cannot just discount anything you paid to Pablito. So that's something important.
And my credit card receipt isn't enough. I have to have the actual factura.
You have to have the factura.
A fiscal resident of Mexico then.
That's right.
Those extra exemptions.
That's right.
So it doesn't look like we have enough time today. Obviously there are so many more topics that we could discuss today, but things like inheritance tax, things like double taxation of paying the tax here in Mexico and tax in the US or Canada. So obviously clients can come talk to you directly if they have more questions, more specific questions related to these types of topics, no?
Of course, I'm wide open to any questions, sure.
Thank you so much, and thank you very much for coming in today. I think we covered many super important questions here. Ryan, thank you so much to you as well.
Thank you, Katya.
Thank you, guys. And if you have any doubts, questions, please feel free to reach out to Ryan or to me, or directly to Licenciado Adam. We have all the contacts here below us. So thank you again. Have a great day. Bye, everybody.